Welcome to OSDR Chats. The Open Science Data Repository celebrates 30 years of data access through the Ames Life Sciences Data Archive and 10 years of omics data through GeneLab this year. Today, we have a special opportunity to hear from 4 leaders of OSDR. Dr. Sylvain Coste, Data Officer of the Biological and Physical Sciences Division, Dr. Lauren Sanders, Project Scientist of OSDR, Sam Gebre, OSDR Project Manager, and Danielle Lopez, OSDR Deputy Project Manager, who together share with us how the repository has played key roles in advancing safe space exploration by enabling data accessibility to researchers worldwide. Thanks for joining us today, Sylvain. Could you please start us off by sharing your thoughts on the role of the Open Science Data Repository in current research?
Sure. So as you said, about 30 years of data archiving has been done at NASA, and it really preceded the concept of open science. But having said that, we've been doing open science for many, many years. The idea is to try to, let's start with open science. What is it? So there are certain concepts. We want to give access to our data to the biggest, to as many people as possible, because we believe that when we share the information, there will be new discoveries made by people that are looking at the data in a different angle. They look at multiple data sets together, and they are able to project a hypothesis. So accessibility is essential. It also enables other features that are really important in science, the concept of reproducibility. There's been many studies over the past 10, 15 years that have shown that many experiments are difficult to reproduce or sometimes impossible to reproduce. And part of the reason for that is the database or the information that was provided with the experiment were incomplete for anyone to go and do these studies. So having database is going to be critical. Database with the right features is essential to be able to reproduce the work from others. And this is really the building blocks of science. The only way we can do science is that we can rely on what has been done by others. And the first thing you do is you try to reproduce what someone else has done. So those are the concepts. There is another one that's very important, is inclusivity. The idea that this access is not limited to a certain population, but it's open to everyone. That's the concept of open science. And why do we do this? Because we are all very different people. We have very different bias and cultural upbringing. And all these little features in our brain really makes us look at things very differently. And this is the power of a group, is that someone may look at things in an angle that no one else can think of. And because of this background, they are able to crack something. They are able to see the opening. So the open science is a critical element of that. And it is a challenging exercise. So what we can see over the 10, 30 years transition that we have observed at NASA is that we went from archiving data, which is simply storing the information, it's there for you to look at, to really going into what we call FAIR database, which stands for FAIR, F-A-I-R, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Those concepts are not necessarily part of the open science concept, but they are instruments and tools that we can use to really leverage and explore open science at its best. And so I'm going to just focus on one aspect of a couple of aspects. Findable, you can actually think about it as not only having a place where you can search information, but having metadata that allows you to search things. So if you archive something and you give no keyword, nothing, it's really difficult to parse the information that has been given. And you don't even know if it was complete. So back to the reproducibility question. If it's not complete, it's going to be hard to reproduce. So we build database. And so the database you're going to hear about today, OSDR, really has spent a lot of energy to build a framework that allows you to be doing this kind of elaborate search. So that's one aspect. I would say the interoperability is another very important feature. That one allows you to connect to other systems, to federate with different databases. And again, by bringing multiple data together, you can have a bigger picture. And I always say my motto for open science and what we do is that the whole is bigger than the sum of the parts. By bringing different studies together, you get a bigger picture. It's like a little piece of puzzles. And even though they are sparse, eventually some pieces come together. And this is really what open science is trying to achieve, having this very large community with all these brains looking at things together yet with a different angle to bring this knowledge. And our goal, because we have so few data in space, is to, bringing more people with different background will allow us to make connection that we may not necessarily see. You may bring someone who's an expert on reproductive health in women, and actually may discover something in our database that tells us about what could happen to a female astronaut in space using animal data. So you can see how this is really an interpolation exercise, and so the human brain is very good at this, but we need many brains, and that's in my mind, this is what we try to achieve with open science, and those 30 years progression from starting with just physiological data, imaging, movies, to now the entire layer of omics. So RNA sequencing, you're going to hear more from the group here, so I'm not going to go in detail, but sequencing, DNA sequencing, mass spectrometry, all these highly quantitative measurements really has opened the door to very exciting time for open science.
Thank you, Sylvain. I'd like to ask my second question to Sam. What contributions from the analysis working groups have fed into the successes of the Open Science Data Repository?
Thank you. Yeah, our analysis working groups, or AWGs, have been a huge part and instrumental in OSDR and the success, both in advancing the scientific output and also the global impact. So we launched the AWGs in 2018 and early 2018, and they have grown impressively. So we've had over 1,000 members all time, but with more than 800 active participants today. So it's a really great, vibrant community. And originally we started out with 4 groups, but now since expanded to 9, focusing on diverse areas, such as organism-specific research. So we have a plant AWG, a microbe AWG, an animal AWG, a female reproductive AWG, human AWG, and others focused on AI/ML, multi-omics, and radiation data analysis. So the contributions of these groups have been remarkable. Since 2019, they published over 30 research papers leveraging the data in OSDR, including 2 groundbreaking collections. So the first was in 2020 in the Cell Press package titled The Biology of Spaceflight. This had over 29 papers, or just around 29 papers, with 9 of those papers utilizing the data in OSDR. In addition, most recently, the Nature Portfolio Collection in 2024, that was just released in June, the Space Omics and Medical Atlas, included 45 papers with contributions from over 100 AWG members across the majority of those publications. So beyond accelerating scientific discovery, the AWGs have spearheaded innovative projects such as Solstice, a citizen science initiative, and have established global collaborations, including ISOP, focusing on space omics standards, and also an ESA topical team. Their efforts have also extended into the commercial ventures, such as Deep Space Biology and BioAstra, and these initiatives underscore the AWG's role in translating OSDR data into new knowledge and applications, really focusing on understanding how organisms adapt to living in space. In addition, the AWG's contributions to OSDR are not limited to research output. They provide critical input to our metadata standard, developed consensus pipelines for omics data processing, and offered feedback to enhance OSDR's data systems. Most importantly, as I mentioned, they've fostered a vibrant and global scientific community that continues to push the boundaries of open science. We are excited to see the AWGs grow, so please make sure to join us.
Thank you, Sam, for highlighting the relationship between the OSDR and the AWGs. My third question is to Danielle. Could you please comment on what you would consider the most valuable aspects of the combination of ALSDA and GeneLab as part of the Open Science Data Repository?
Yeah, I would say accessibility. The value is in the 30 years of life sciences research into a single repository, specifically one that was built on the foundation of standardized metadata and wide accessibility. So bringing those two databases together and just being able to access that data on a broader scale has been very valuable in what we've seen the past couple years. So for decades, whether it's scientists, engineers, archivists, have been collecting and gathering this information and really invaluable data and metadata Then as of 2022, the research is now accessible in a single centralized platform. And this also does include the 20+ years of comprehensive data and metadata from collections like hardware, media, images, missions, payloads, experiment descriptions, and telemetry, both in analog and digital formats. From the past 30 years, that format has definitely changed. A lot of physical collections, now we're dealing mainly with digital collections. So it's nice to see that relationship in this new database also. In addition, the metadata associated with biospecimen collections that is now managed by the NASA Biological Institutional Scientific Collection, NBISC. So that metadata is also within this repository. And then the connections to related studies, missions, hardware, add critical context to the information stored in OSDR. Research gain a complete and cohesive narrative by having all the consolidation of this information into one location. So this integration has enhanced the data accessibility and I would say the reusability through the existing and new data applications that exist, streamlined workflows, and then also enabling the seamless merging of data from spaceflight experiments to hopefully enhancing future and more knowledge discovery.
Thank you, Danielle, for highlighting the interconnectedness of all that's available through the repository. Reflecting on what the OSDR has enabled, I'd like to ask Lauren, how do you envision future outcomes of the data availability through OSDR?
Yes, thank you, Jennifer. So really what I'm seeing is that we're entering into this new era of science where the types of multimodal data that's available through OSDR can be combined using these advanced computational methods like deep learning and artificial intelligence. And so this is allowing us to build very powerful predictive models that we really weren't able to do before. So we're already seeing how the combination of this type of molecular omics data together with the video data, the image data, behavioral data, or environmental telemetry data is allowing us to model the effects of spaceflight at all levels of a living system, and including the spacecraft or the habitat. So just like Sylvain had said, the whole is bigger than the sum of the parts. So having all of these precious data sets available to the scientific community through OSDR, I envision is going to enable these further breakthroughs, not just from funded investigators, but also from citizen scientists, from students, and from other community groups, such as the analysis working groups that Sam was talking about. So in the coming years, I'm envisioning significant advancements in our understanding of spaceflight effects, but also in our ability to predict these effects and to mitigate them. And this is due to the fair nature and the reusable data available through OSDR.
Thank you for helping to answer all those questions. We appreciate the time that all of you have spent sharing this information with us to celebrate 30 years of open science with our viewers and for inviting them to participate with us. And to our audience out there, you can learn more about the Open Science Data Repository and the analysis working groups with the links provided in the description section below. On behalf of the Open Science Data Repository, we wish you all a wonderful day.
Thank you.